The champagne flute slipped from my fingers before I even felt it leave my hand. Crystal shattered against marble, and the sound seemed to come from very far away, like I was underwater. The gala's glittering ballroom tilted sideways, and I grabbed the edge of the bar to keep from falling. "Whoa there, sweetheart." Rick's hand clamped onto my elbow, his breath hot against my ear. "Maybe you've had enough." But I hadn't had enough. I'd barely touched my drink. My tongue felt thick in my mouth. The chandeliers above me multiplied into a dozen spinning suns. I tried to pull away from Rick, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. His fingers dug into my arm hard enough to bruise. "Come on, let's get you somewhere quiet." His voice had changed. No more of that charming tone he'd used all evening. This was something else. Something that made my skin crawl even through the fog clouding my brain. I wanted to scream, but my voice came out as barely a whisper. "No." "Oh, I think yes." He started dragging me toward the exit, away from the crowd of Chicago's elite in their designer gowns and tailored suits. Away from the safety of witnesses. Nobody noticed. Or if they did, they looked away. Just another drunk woman being helped out by her date. How many times had I seen the same thing and thought nothing of it? The ballroom doors were getting closer. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my body wouldn't obey my commands to fight, to run, to do anything but stumble forward in Rick's grip. Then a voice cut through the noise like a blade through silk. "You have 3 seconds." Rick stopped. I tried to focus on the source of that voice, but my vision kept blurring. I could make out a tall figure in a black suit, broad shoulders, dark hair. The crowd around us had gone quiet. "Excuse me?" Rick's hand tightened on my arm. "This is my date, and she's... Who spiked her drink?" The question hung in the air like a death sentence. The entire ballroom seemed to hold its breath. Through my drugged haze, I felt the shift in atmosphere, felt the fear suddenly radiating from Rick's body. "I don't know what you're talking about. Sarah just had too much." 3. The man took a step closer. I could see him a bit better now. Sharp features, cold eyes the color of a winter storm. The kind of face that belonged on Roman coins or in nightmares. 2. "Look, man, I don't want any trouble." Rick's voice had gone high and thin. His grip on me loosened. 1. It was just supposed to be fun. She was teasing me all night, playing hard to get. I thought... He didn't get to finish. The man moved so fast I barely saw it. One moment he was standing 3 feet away. The next Rick was on the ground, blood pouring from his nose, and I was falling. But I didn't hit the floor. Strong arms caught me, and I found myself being lifted like I weighed nothing. I tried to focus on my rescuer's face, but everything kept swimming. "How much did you give her?" The voice rumbled through his chest. I was pressed against it, and the vibration was oddly comforting. Rick was whimpering something I couldn't make out. Then another voice spoke, younger, nervous. "Boss, we should get her to a doctor. Call Marcus. Tell him to meet us at the penthouse." "And someone deal with this garbage." The world lurched and spun as the man carried me through the ballroom. I caught glimpses of shocked faces, heard scandalized whispers. The last thing I saw before the darkness took me was the crystal chandelier overhead, fracturing into 1,000 points of light. Then nothing. I woke up to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, and the worst headache of my life. For a moment, I just lay there, trying to piece together where I was. This wasn't my apartment. My apartment didn't have Egyptian cotton sheets or a view of Lake Michigan from what looked like 50 floors up. My apartment definitely didn't smell like expensive cologne and danger. Then the memories came flooding back. The gala, the champagne, Rick, the drink. Oh God, the drink. I sat up too fast and immediately regretted it. The room spun and my stomach lurched. A hand pressed a glass of water into my palm, and I nearly screamed. "Drink, slowly." I turned to find the man from the ballroom sitting in an armchair beside the bed. In the harsh light of day, He was even more intimidating than I remembered. Mid-30s, maybe. Dark hair perfectly styled, sharp jawline, and those eyes. Storm gray eyes that seemed to see straight through me. He was also absolutely gorgeous, which seemed deeply unfair given the circumstances. "Where am I?" My voice came out raspy. "My home. You've been asleep for 14 hours. The doctor said you'd be fine, but someone needed to monitor you. I had my staff take shifts." I clutched the sheet to my chest, suddenly aware I was wearing clothes I didn't recognize. Soft pajamas. Nothing inappropriate. But still. Who undressed me? "Elena. She's worked for me for 20 years. Your dress is being cleaned. Your belongings are on the dresser." He gestured to where my purse and phone sat. "Your phone has been ringing. I didn't answer it." I didn't know what to say to that. This man had saved me from something horrible, but I also didn't know him, and I was in his home, and I'd seen enough crime dramas to know this could still go very wrong. He seemed to read my thoughts. "You're not a prisoner? You can leave whenever you want, but I'd like to ask you some questions first." "Questions about what?" "About why Rick Henderson thought he could drug you at the Merino Charity Gala and walk out with you in front of 200 people. I don't understand." The man leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Rick Henderson is a mid-level stockbroker with a cocaine habit and a tendency to bet more than he can afford. He's nobody. Which means either he's incredibly stupid or someone told him he could get away with it." "Get away with drugging me?" The words tasted bitter. Why would anyone care if he got away with it? Something flickered across the man's face. Not quite pity. Something harder. "Because the Merino Charity Gala is hosted by the Merino family. My family. Nothing happens at our events without our knowledge or permission. If Rick thought he could spike your drink and walk out, someone made him believe the Merinos wouldn't care." The name hit me like ice water. Merino. Of course. Alessandro Merino. I'd seen his picture in the society pages, though those photos didn't do justice to the intensity of his presence in person. I also knew what the Merino family really was, beneath the charity galas and the luxury hotels and the legitimate business fronts. Everyone in Chicago knew. You just didn't talk about it. "I don't know anything," I said quickly. "I just came to the gala because my firm handles some of the accounting for the foundation. Rick asked me to be his date. I thought it would be networking." "Your firm?" Alessandro pulled out his phone, scrolled through something. "You're Sarah Chen. You work at Hoffman and Associates. You've been there for 6 years. You have a cat named Pumpkin. Your mother lives in Michigan. You volunteer at a women's shelter on weekends. You're 32 years old and you haven't had a serious relationship in 3 years. My blood ran cold. "How do you know all that?" "Because I needed to know who you were before I decided what to do with you." "Do with me?" I was on my feet before I realized I'd moved, even though the room tilted dangerously. "I'm not something you get to do something with. I was the victim here." Alessandro stood too, and I was reminded how much taller he was, how much more powerful. But I refused to back down, even as my legs trembled. "Yes," he said quietly. "You were the victim, which is why 7 men are currently missing." The air left my lungs. "What?" "Rick Henderson, the 2 men he was with at the bar, the bartender who mixed your drink, the security guard who was supposed to be watching that section of the ballroom, the valet who had Rick's car waiting, and the manager who assigned that particular bartender to that particular station." Alessandro's voice was perfectly calm, like he was discussing the weather. "They all disappeared last night, and they won't be found unless I want them to be found." I should have been horrified. I should have run. Instead, all I could think was, he did that for me. "I don't even know you," I whispered. "No, you don't." He took a step closer. "But you know what Rick was going to do to you. And you know that it's happened before, to other women. It will happen again unless men like him learn there are consequences. I should go to the police. You can. But Rick has 3 lawyers on retainer and a family with money. You have a blood test that will show you were drugged, and a he-said-she-said story about who put what in your glass." How do you think that ends? I hated that he was right. Hated it with everything in me. So what? You just get to decide justice? You get to make people disappear? Yes. No hesitation. No apology. That's exactly what I do. But I don't hurt innocent people. I don't hurt women. And I sure as hell don't let predators operate in my city without consequences. My city. Like he owned it. Maybe he did. I should have been afraid of Alessandro Marino. Every instinct should have been screaming at me to run. But all I could think about was the moment Rick's hand had clamped on my arm. The way he'd dragged me toward the door while everyone looked away. The knowledge that if Alessandro hadn't been there, I'd have woken up in a very different place, if I woke up at all. Thank you, I said finally, for saving me. But I need to go home now. Something changed in his expression. A crack in that controlled facade. Do you really think you're safe? What do you mean? I mean that Rick didn't act alone. I mean that someone gave him permission to drug you at a Marino event. I mean that you're now connected to me because I intervened publicly, in front of 200 witnesses. You think whoever orchestrated this is just going to let that go? The headache was back, pounding behind my eyes. This is insane. I just wanted to go to a stupid gala. I just wanted to network and maybe eat some decent catering. And instead, you became a target. Alessandro moved to the window, looking out over the city. I don't know why yet, but I'm going to find out. That's not your responsibility. He turned back to me, and there was something almost gentle in his expression. Yes, Sarah, it is, because I made it my responsibility the moment I picked you up off that floor. I did go home eventually. Alessandro had his driver take me in a car that probably cost more than my annual salary. He also assigned a security team to watch my building, though he didn't ask my permission first. Just for a few days, he'd said, until I know who we're dealing with. Like I was part of his team now, part of his world. My apartment felt smaller when I walked in, emptier. Pumpkin meowed indignantly from her perch on the couch, but even she couldn't make the space feel like a sanctuary anymore. Every shadow seemed dangerous. Every sound made me jump. I called in sick to work. Spent the day pacing and trying not to think about Rick's face when Alessandro had asked him who spiked my drink. Trying not to think about where Rick was now. Trying not to think about Alessandro's hands catching me as I fell. My phone rang at 8 that evening. Unknown number. Hello? Miss Chen, it's Alessandro. My heart did something complicated. How did you get my number? The same way I got everything else. Are you home? Yes. Good. Stay there. I'm sending someone over. What? Why? Because I know who targeted you, and it's worse than I thought. He hung up before I could respond. 10 minutes later, someone knocked on my door. I checked the peephole and saw a woman in her 50s, professionally dressed with kind eyes. Miss Chen, I'm Elena. Mr. Marino sent me to stay with you tonight. I let her in because I was too tired to argue. Elena made tea without being asked and sat across from me at my tiny kitchen table like this was perfectly normal. He's worried about you, she said quietly. I haven't seen him like this in years. Like what? Protective. Alessandro learned a long time ago not to care too much about anyone outside the family. It's safer that way. But something about you got to him. I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to feel about being someone Alessandro Marino cared about. Didn't want to examine too closely why that thought made warmth spread through my chest. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Don't be afraid. I'm handling it. I stared at that message for a long time. At the casual intimacy of him signing with just his initial. At the assumption that I'd know who it was. At the realization that I did know, and that some part of me had been waiting to hear from him. Alessandro came to my apartment himself the next morning. Elena let him in, then discreetly disappeared into my bedroom with Pumpkin. He looked like he hadn't slept. His suit was still perfect, his hair still immaculate, but there were shadows under his eyes. Coffee? I offered. Please. We stood in my kitchen, drinking terrible instant coffee, and it felt surreal. Alessandro Marino, who probably had people to brew his coffee from beans flown in from Colombia, drinking my grocery store instant without complaint. "Tell me," I said finally. "Your firm handles accounting for the Marino Foundation, which means you have access to financial records that someone wants." My stomach sank. What kind of records? The kind that would show where certain donations actually go. The kind that could expose money laundering operations worth millions. He set down his mug. "Rick wasn't trying to assault you for fun, Sarah. He was trying to get you alone so he could extract information. The drug was just the method." "But I don't have that kind of access. I'm mid-level. I handle basic audits, and you have more access than you think, and someone believes you can get what they need, or that you already know something valuable." I thought about my work, about the foundation accounts I'd reviewed, about the discrepancies I'd noticed but had been told not to worry about. Oh, God. There were some irregularities, I admitted. A few months ago, large donations that didn't quite match up with the expense reports, but my supervisor said it was just timing differences, that everything was legitimate. Alessandro's expression darkened. "Who's your supervisor?" "James Hoffman. He's the founder's son." James Hoffman, who gambles at underground poker games. James Hoffman, who owes money to half the bookies in Chicago. Alessandro pulled out his phone, typed something. "James Hoffman, who had dinner with Rick Henderson 3 days before the gala." The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. "James set me up. James sold you out to cover his own debts. He told them you had information they could use. Rick was supposed to drug you, take you somewhere private, and extract whatever you knew. Or convince you to get what they needed." "Convince me?" Alessandro's jaw tightened. "I think you know what I mean." I did, and the coffee in my stomach turned to acid. The people Rick works for, not as a stockbroker, but his real employers, they're trying to expose my family's operations. They want evidence they can take to the FBI, leverage they can use to destroy us. He moved closer, and I could smell his cologne, feel the heat of him. "You were collateral damage, a means to an end. So, what happens now? Now I keep you safe, and I destroy everyone who thought they could use you." There should have been nothing attractive about the cold promise in his voice, nothing appealing about a man who could speak so casually about destruction. But God help me, I felt safer with Alessandro Marino looking at me like that than I'd felt in my entire life. "I'm not part of your world," I said softly. "I don't know how to be. You don't have to be part of it. You just have to let me protect you until it's over." "And then what? I go back to my normal life? Pretend none of this happened?" Alessandro reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his fingers brushed my cheek. "Is that what you want? To go back?" The honest answer was no. The safe answer was yes. I didn't know which one to give him. My phone rang, shattering the moment. James Hoffman's name flashed on the screen. Alessandro's hand dropped. "Don't answer. He's calling to see if you're still cooperative, still unaware. Let him wonder." But something in me snapped. Maybe it was the violation of being drugged. Maybe it was the knowledge that my boss had sold me out. Maybe it was just that I was tired of being afraid. I answered the phone. "Sarah, thank God. I heard you had some trouble at the gala. Are you all right?" "You tell me, James. Am I all right?" Silence on the other end. Then his voice changed, went cold. "I don't know what you think you know. I know you had dinner with Rick Henderson. I know you told him I had access to foundation records. I know you sold me out to pay your gambling debts." My voice was shaking, but I kept going. "I know everything. Sarah, listen to me carefully. The people I'm involved with, they don't give second chances. If you don't cooperate, if you don't help them get what they need." Alessandro plucked the phone from my hand. "James Hoffman. Let me introduce myself. My name is Alessandro Marino, and Sarah is under my protection now. which means if you or anyone associated with you comes within 100 feet of her, I'll consider it a declaration of war. Do you understand?" I couldn't hear James's response, but I saw Alessandro's expression darken. "No, you listen. Rick Henderson has already told me everything. The names, the operations, the entire network. You have 24 hours to disappear. Leave Chicago. Leave Illinois. I don't care where you go, but if you're still in my city tomorrow night, you won't live to see the next morning." He ended the call and handed my phone back. That was probably reckless. "That was amazing," I breathed. Something sparked in his eyes. Something hot and dangerous and thrilling. "You're not afraid of me." "I should be." "Yes, you should be." But I wasn't. I was afraid of James and Rick and whoever else was involved in this nightmare. I was afraid of what might have happened if Alessandro hadn't been at that gala. But I wasn't afraid of the man standing in my kitchen, looking at me like I was something precious he'd been searching for his whole life. Sarah. My name on his lips sounded like a prayer. If I keep you safe, if I end this threat, you'll still be connected to me. People will talk. They'll make assumptions about who you are to me. What am I to you? He stepped closer. Close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Close enough that I could count his heartbeats. That depends on what you want to be. I'd never been brave. I was the girl who played it safe, who followed the rules, who went to work and came home and lived a small, careful life. But maybe almost dying changed something in you. Maybe being saved by a dangerous man made you dangerous too. I kissed him. Or maybe he kissed me. It was hard to tell, because the moment our lips met, everything else disappeared. His hands came up to frame my face, gentle despite their strength. My fingers clutched his shirt, pulling him closer. He tasted like coffee and control and something darker, something that should have terrified me, but instead made me feel alive for the first time in years. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "That complicates things," Alessandro said roughly. "Everything about this is already complicated." "Sarah, I'm not a good man. I've done things. I know what you are. You told me yesterday, remember? You make people disappear. You own this city. You're dangerous." I traced the line of his jaw. "But you also saved my life. You protected me when no one else would have. You made sure a woman you didn't know was safe before you made sure she was useful." His eyes closed briefly, like I'd hit something tender. "Don't make me into a hero." "I'm not. I'm just seeing you clearly." When he looked at me again, there was something raw in his expression. "If you choose this, choose me. There's no going back. People will know you're mine. Other families, other organizations, they'll see you as a weakness or a target. Your life will never be simple again." It stopped being simple the moment Rick put something in my drink. "I can still keep you safe from a distance. You don't have to be involved." I kissed him again, harder this time. When I pulled back, I said, "I'm already involved. I'm already a target. So, if I'm going to be in danger anyway, I'd rather be in danger with you." Alessandro's control cracked. He pulled me against him, his hands sliding into my hair, and kissed me like he was claiming me, like he was branding me as his in front of God and everyone, even though we were alone in my tiny kitchen. When we finally came up for air, he rested his forehead against mine. "I don't know how to do this gently." "Then don't be gentle. Be honest." "Honestly? I saw you at that gala before Rick ever touched you. I watched you laugh at something your coworker said. I noticed the way you helped an older woman find her table. I thought you looked like light in a room full of shadows." His voice dropped. "And when I saw him dragging you away, when I realized what he'd done, I wanted to kill him with my bare hands. Not because of politics or territory or any of the usual reasons, because he touched something that was supposed to be mine. I wasn't yours. We'd never even met. I know. That's what makes this insane." He pulled back enough to look at me properly. "I don't believe in love at first sight. I don't believe in fate. But I believe in knowing what you want and taking it." And I want you, Sarah Chen. I want to keep you safe. I want to wake up to you in my bed. I want to put a ring on your finger and dare anyone to question my claim. My breath caught. Alessandro, too much? Too fast? I told you I don't do this gently. It's terrifying. Is that a no? I thought about my safe, careful life, my predictable routine, my empty apartment and my casual acquaintances, and my careful boundaries. I thought about how all of that hadn't protected me from Rick Henderson, or James Hoffman, or any of the other wolves in expensive suits. Then I thought about Alessandro catching me as I fell, about him making 7 men disappear because they'd helped hurt me, about the way he looked at me like I was worth starting a war over. It's not a no, I whispered. The smile that crossed his face was devastating. Then come home with me. I am home. No, Sarah. This is where you've been hiding. Home is where I can protect you properly, where you can have a whole floor if you want space, where you can keep your cat and your books and anything else you need. He cupped my face in his hands. Home is where I can see you every day and know you're safe. You're asking me to move in with you. We've known each other for 2 days. Yes. That's crazy. Yes. People will think I'm a gold digger, or that you're keeping me. I am keeping you. That's the point. His thumb brushed my lower lip. But you're not some mistress I'm hiding away. You'll be mine completely, publicly. The woman Alessandro Marino chose. The one person in this city I'd burn it down to protect. I should have said no. Should have asked for time, for space, for a chance to think clearly when he wasn't standing so close that I couldn't breathe properly. Instead, I said, I need to pack. Moving into Alessandro's penthouse should have been awkward. Should have felt too fast, too overwhelming. But somehow it wasn't. Elena helped me settle in, chattering about which rooms had the best light and where we should put Pumpkin's litter box. The penthouse had more square footage than my entire apartment building, with views of the lake that made my chest ache. Alessandro gave me the master bedroom suite. Where will you sleep? I asked, standing in the doorway of a room bigger than most people's entire homes. Wherever you want me to. He set down my suitcase. In the guest room if you need space. In here if you don't. That night I didn't need space. We didn't have sex. Alessandro held me while I cried about everything that had happened, all the fear and violation finally catching up with me. He stroked my hair and murmured words in Italian I didn't understand but felt in my bones. And when I finally fell asleep, I felt safer than I had in my entire life. I woke up to him watching me, gray eyes soft in the morning light. Hi, I whispered. Hi yourself. He brushed hair from my face. Still sure about this? Terrified and sure. Is that a contradiction? No, that's just being smart. He kissed my forehead. I have to handle some business today. Elena will stay with you. Don't leave the building. Is it about James? Among other things. The people he was working with made a mistake going after you. Now they're going to pay for it. I grabbed his hand before he could get up. Don't kill anyone for me. Alessandro's expression was unreadable. Would it bother you if I did? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. But I also know that's who you are, and I'm choosing you anyway. I struggled for words. I just want you to come back. Something shifted in his face. He leaned down and kissed me, slow and deep and devastating. When he pulled back, he said, I always come back to what's mine. He left me breathless in bed, and I heard him giving orders to someone in the other room. Elena appeared with coffee and pastries, and a knowing smile. He's different with you, she said, settling into the chair by the window. Softer. He doesn't seem soft to me. Because you don't know what he was like before. All edges and ice. We worried he'd forgotten how to be human. She sipped her coffee. Then he came home carrying you like you were made of glass, and everything changed. I spent the day reading, playing with Pumpkin, and trying not to think about what Alessandro was doing. trying not to imagine the violence his business entailed. He came back at sunset, and I could see the tension in his shoulders even from across the room. "Is it done?" I asked. "It's done. James Hoffman won't be a problem. Neither will anyone else involved. I didn't kill anyone, but I made sure they understood the consequences if they ever tried this again. James is on a plane to Singapore. He won't come back." Alessandro pulled me into his arms. "You're safe now." I let myself sink into him, breathing in his scent. "What happens now?" "Now you decide how you want to live. If you want to go back to work, I'll make sure you're protected. If you want to do something else, I'll support that. If you want to stay here and let me spoil you, I'm more than willing. I don't want to be some kept woman. You're not. You're the woman I chose. There's a difference." He tilted my chin up. "But Sarah, you need to understand something. Being mine comes with benefits and consequences. The benefits are that you'll never want for anything. You'll be protected, respected, given anything you desire. The consequences are that people will judge you. They'll make assumptions. They'll think they know what you are to me. What am I to you? Everything." He said it simply, like it was obvious. "I've built an empire on control and calculation. But you make me want to burn it all down if it means keeping you safe. That's not rational. That's not smart. But it's true." My eyes stung. "You barely know me." "I know enough. I know you're brave. I know you volunteer at a women's shelter because you believe in helping people who can't help themselves. I know you take care of a cat you found in a dumpster. I know you stood up to your boss even when you were terrified. I know you kissed me despite knowing exactly what I am." He pressed his forehead to mine. "And I know that I'm going to marry you." I laughed, a little hysterical. "You can't just decide that." "Watch me." "Alessandro, I know it's fast. I know it's crazy, but I also know that I'm not letting you go. So you can take your time deciding if you want to marry me, but eventually you will, because I'm a patient man when it matters, and you matter more than anything." There was something absolutely insane about his confidence, and something incredibly seductive about being wanted that intensely. What if I say no? Then I'll ask again, and again, until you understand that this is inevitable. He kissed me softly. "But you won't say no, Sarah, because you feel it too. This thing between us that doesn't make sense but exists anyway." He was right, and I hated it, loved it, couldn't deny it. "You're very sure of yourself." "I have to be. It's my job." His hands slid down my back. "Now let me show you what else I'm good at." He kissed me like he was memorizing my taste, like he had all the time in the world and intended to use every second. When his hands started to wander, I didn't stop them. When he carried me to the bedroom, I wrapped myself around him and held on. We didn't go all the way. Not that night. But we explored each other slowly, carefully, learning the geography of desire. And when I finally fell asleep in his arms, I knew something fundamental had shifted. I was Alessandro Marino's now, and he was mine. 3 months later, I stood in a private dining room at the most exclusive restaurant in Chicago. Around me were the Marino family and their closest associates, people whose names appeared in whispered conversations and FBI files, people who controlled more wealth and power than I could comprehend. And they were all here for me. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alessandro said, standing at the head of the table with his hand on my back, "thank you for coming tonight. Most of you have already met Sarah, but I wanted to make an official announcement." He turned to me, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. "Sarah Chen is mine, my partner, my future wife, and anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly." The threat was unmistakable. So was the pride in his voice. His mother, an elegant woman with steel in her eyes, raised her glass. "To Sarah, welcome to the family." Everyone drank. Everyone smiled. And I knew that this was it. The moment I officially became part of Alessandro's world. Later, when we were alone on his balcony overlooking the city, he pulled a box from his pocket. "I was going to wait," he said. "Do this properly, but I've never been good at waiting for what I want." Inside was a ring that probably cost more than everything I'd ever owned combined. A platinum band with a diamond so clear it looked like captured starlight. "Sarah Chen, you walked into my life by accident and changed everything. You made me remember what it feels like to protect something precious. You made me want to be better, even though I'll probably never be good." He took my hand. "Marry me. Not because I'm demanding it, but because you want to. Because you feel this too." I looked at the ring, at the man holding it, at the city spread out below us like a kingdom he ruled. I thought about the girl I'd been 3 months ago. Careful, cautious Sarah, with her safe life and her small dreams. She would have run from this, would have seen the danger and the darkness, and chosen to stay in her comfortable bubble. But that girl had been drugged at a gala. That girl had been betrayed by someone she trusted. That girl had learned that playing it safe didn't actually keep you safe. This girl, the one I'd become, knew that sometimes the most dangerous choice was also the right one. "Yes," I said. "Yes, I'll marry you." Alessandro's smile could have lit the entire city. He slid the ring onto my finger, then pulled me into a kiss that tasted like triumph and promise, and forever. "You'll have to quit your job," he murmured against my lips. "Can't have my wife working for a firm that had such poor judgment in employees." "I already quit. Started my own consulting firm last week." He pulled back, eyes bright with surprise and pleasure. "Did you? You're not the only one who can build an empire." I grinned at him. Besides, I figured if I'm going to be connected to the Marino name, I should probably have something of my own. Something legitimate. "That's my girl." He kissed me again, deeper this time. "Smart, beautiful, and mine." "Yours," I agreed. "But Alessandro?" "Yes? You're mine too. Don't forget that." The look he gave me was pure possession. "Never. I've been yours since the moment I saw you falling and knew I'd burn the world down before I let you hit the ground." Below us, Chicago glittered in the darkness. Somewhere in that city, Rick Henderson and James Hoffman were living with the consequences of their choices. Somewhere, other women were being drugged, being betrayed, being hurt. But here, in Alessandro Marino's arms, with his ring on my finger and his promise in my heart, I was safe, cherished, claimed. I'd walked into that gala 3 months ago as no one special. Just another accountant in a borrowed dress, hoping to make connections. I'd walked out as the woman who would become Alessandro Marino's wife. And when we announced our engagement in the paper, when society whispered about the nobody who'd somehow captured Chicago's most dangerous bachelor, I didn't care. Let them talk. Let them wonder. I knew the truth. I wasn't some innocent he'd corrupted. I was the woman strong enough to stand beside him, to love him despite his darkness, to build something good and real in the shadows. And if that made me dangerous too, well, maybe I'd always had that in me. Maybe it just took the right man, in the right moment, to set it free. "What are you thinking?" Alessandro asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "That I should send Rick Henderson a thank you card." He laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "Why?" "Because if he hadn't spiked my drink, I never would have met you. And this," I gestured at the ring, at him, at the life we were building, "this would never have happened. I would have found you eventually." His lips brushed my ear. "I told you. This was inevitable." Maybe he was right. Maybe some things were fated. Or maybe we just decided to make them true through sheer force of will. Either way, I was Alessandro Marino's now, his partner, his love, his future wife, and I'd never been happier to be claimed. 3 months after that, I walked down the aisle in a dress that cost more than my first car. Alessandro waited at the altar in a tuxedo that was probably bulletproof, surrounded by his family and mine. My mother cried. His mother smiled with genuine warmth. and when the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," Alessandro pulled me into his arms and kissed me like he was sealing a promise. A vow. A claim that would last until the end of time. "Mine," he whispered against my lips. "Yours," I whispered back. "Always yours." The reception was legendary. 300 guests, champagne flowing like water. And Alessandro never more than a foot from my side. When we danced, the world fell away. It was just us, moving together, bound by something deeper than vows or rings. Later, when we were finally alone in the honeymoon suite, he undressed me slowly, reverently. And when we finally came together, when he made me completely his in every way that mattered, I understood what he'd been trying to tell me from the beginning. This wasn't a fairy tale. This wasn't some fantasy of being saved by a dangerous man. This was two broken people finding something whole in each other. This was choosing the darkness because it came with light. This was being brave enough to be claimed and claiming something in return. I'd been drugged at a gala by a man who thought I was disposable. I'd been saved by a man who thought I was priceless. And now I wore Alessandro Marino's ring, bore his name, and shared his bed. Some people would say I was a victim who fell for her savior. Others would call me a gold digger who seduced a powerful man. A few would whisper that I'd gotten exactly what I deserved, good or bad depending on who was talking. I didn't care what any of them thought, because I knew the truth. I was Sarah Marino now, wife of Chicago's most dangerous man, protected, cherished, and claimed beyond any doubt. And when Alessandro pulled me close that night, when he whispered promises in the dark about forever and always, and mine, I knew I'd made the right choice. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is play it safe. Sometimes the smartest choice is the reckless one. And sometimes, just sometimes, being claimed by the right person means finally becoming free. "I love you," I whispered into the darkness. "I love you," Alessandro whispered back. "My Sarah, my wife, mine. Mine." It should have sounded possessive, should have felt like a cage. Instead, it sounded like coming home. The threat came 6 months into our marriage, on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I was in Alessandro's home office, reviewing contracts for my consulting firm, when Elena burst through the door without knocking. Her face was pale, hands shaking. "Mrs. Marino, you need to come with me. Now." Something in her voice made my blood run cold. "What's wrong?" "Please, just come." She led me to the security room, where multiple screens showed different angles of our building. Alessandro was there already, along with 3 men I recognized as his most trusted associates. They were all staring at one particular screen. A woman stood in our lobby, young, blonde, visibly pregnant. She was crying, clutching what looked like a letter. "Who is she?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Already felt the bottom dropping out of my world. Alessandro's jaw was tight. "Her name is Melissa Carver. She claims she's carrying my child." The words hit me like a physical blow. I grabbed the edge of the desk to steady myself. "Is she?" "No." He turned to face me, and his eyes were blazing. "Sarah, I swear to you on everything I am, I have never touched that woman. I've never even seen her before today." "Then why is she here? Why would she claim—" "Because someone sent her." He gestured to one of his men. "Show her." The man pulled up security footage from the street outside our building. The same blonde woman 30 minutes earlier, getting out of a black sedan. A man handed her an envelope. Even from the grainy footage, I could see the wad of cash he passed her along with it. "We're running the plates now," Alessandro said, "and facial recognition on the man. But I already know what this is. Someone's trying to drive a wedge between us." I stared at the screen, at the crying woman in our lobby. She looks really pregnant. She is pregnant, but not with my child. Alessandro moved closer, his hands hovering near me like he wanted to touch me, but wasn't sure if I'd let him. "Sarah, look at me, please." I did. I looked at my husband, The man who'd claimed me so fiercely, who'd promised me forever. The man who'd also made 7 people disappear without blinking. "I believe you," I said quietly. Relief flooded his face. "You do?" "Yes, because if you'd gotten another woman pregnant, you'd have told me directly. You don't hide. You don't lie. You'd have looked me in the eye and dealt with the consequences." I took a breath. "But someone thinks I don't know you that well. Someone thinks this will break us." Alessandro's smile was sharp and dangerous. "Someone made a mistake." One of his men cleared his throat. "Boss, we got a hit on the plates. Car is registered to a shell company. Same one we traced back to the Castellano family last month." The name made Alessandro's expression darken. I'd heard it before, whispered in conversations that stopped when I entered the room. The Castellanos were rivals, had been for generations. An uneasy peace had held for years, but peace was always temporary in this world. "They're testing me," Alessandro said softly. "Seeing if they can destabilize my marriage, make me look weak. If Sarah leaves me over this, if our marriage falls apart publicly, it shows vulnerability they can exploit." "So what do we do?" I asked. He looked at me and something shifted in his expression. "We? Sarah, this isn't your fight." "The hell it isn't! She's standing in our lobby claiming to be pregnant with your baby. She's trying to destroy our marriage. That makes it absolutely my fight." I straightened my spine, channeling every ounce of strength I had. "So, I'll ask again. What do we do?" Alessandro studied me for a long moment. Then he smiled, and it was the smile of a man who'd just realized he'd chosen exactly the right wife. "We go down there together, and we show them that the Marinos don't break." The elevator ride down to the lobby felt like descending into battle. Alessandro held my hand the entire way, his grip firm and steady. When the doors opened, I could see Melissa Carver through the security glass, still crying, now surrounded by building security. "Let her in," Alessandro ordered. The head of security looked uncertain. "Sir, are you sure? Let her in. My wife and I will speak with her in the conference room." We were led to a small, sterile room with a table and chairs. Melissa followed, her eyes darting between us nervously. Up close, I could see she was younger than I'd thought. Maybe 23, 24. Scared beneath the tears. Alessandro didn't sit. He stood with his arms crossed, every inch the dangerous man he was. "Who sent you?" "I don't know what you mean. I came because... Don't lie to me." His voice was soft, which somehow made it more terrifying. "You were paid to come here. Paid to claim you're carrying my child. I want to know who gave you the money." Melissa's face crumbled. "I can't. They said if I told anyone, they'd..." She touched her stomach protectively. I stepped forward before Alessandro could respond. "They'd hurt your baby?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't want to do this, but I'm a single mother, I don't have family, and they offered me $50,000. I just thought I'd deliver a letter, say what they told me to say, and leave. I didn't know..." She looked at Alessandro, genuine fear in her eyes. "I didn't know who you were. Not really. Not until I got here and saw the security and realized that you'd walked into something much bigger than you understood," I finished gently. She nodded again, miserable and terrified. I looked at Alessandro. He was watching me, waiting to see how I'd handle this, trusting me to make the right call. I turned back to Melissa. "How far along are you?" 7 months. "And the father?" "Gone. He left when I told him. I've been working 2 jobs, but I'm about to lose both because I can't hide this much longer, and childcare costs more than I make, and I just..." She broke down completely. I'm so sorry. I'll tell them I couldn't do it. I'll give the money back." "No," Alessandro said. "You'll keep the money, and you'll tell me everything you know about who hired you." Melissa's eyes went wide. "But they said..." "I don't care what they said. They threatened your child to force you into this scheme. That makes them my enemy." He pulled out his phone. "You're going to tell me everything. and then you're going to disappear. New city, new identity, new life. Somewhere they'll never find you. I can't afford that. You're not paying for it. I am." He glanced at me. "My wife believes in helping people who can't help themselves. And you're a mother trying to protect her child. So we're going to protect both of you." I felt something warm bloom in my chest. This was why I'd married him. Not despite his darkness, but because of how he wielded it. He could be ruthless with those who deserved it, and merciful with those who didn't. Melissa told us everything through her tears. The man who'd approached her had used the name Vincent, though she doubted it was real. He'd known things about her, where she worked, how much debt she was in, that she was alone. He'd given her a script to memorize, a letter to deliver, and explicit instructions to act emotional and vulnerable. "The letter," Alessandro said. "Where is it?" She pulled it from her purse with shaking hands. Alessandro opened it, read it, then passed it to me. The contents were designed to be devastating. Fake love letters supposedly from Alessandro to Melissa. Descriptions of their relationship. Promises he'd supposedly made about leaving his wife. It was all lies, but convincing lies. The kind that could destroy a marriage if the wife was uncertain. If she didn't truly know her husband. "Clever," I said, setting it down. "They knew I haven't been in this world long. Probably thought I'd be insecure enough to believe it." "Are you?" Alessandro asked quietly. "Insecure?" I met his eyes. "Not about us. Never about us." Something fierce and possessive flashed across his face. He turned back to Melissa. "You're going to go back to whoever hired you. You're going to tell them you delivered the letter, that Sarah was devastated, that you saw her crying. You're going to sell it. And then tomorrow morning, you're going to get on a plane. Elena will make all the arrangements. But they'll be watching me. They'll know if I leave. They won't know until it's too late. And by then, they'll have bigger problems than one pregnant girl disappearing." The threat in his voice was unmistakable. "Do you understand what I'm offering you, Melissa? A chance to start over, to raise your baby somewhere safe. All you have to do is trust me for 24 hours. Melissa looked at me, as if seeking confirmation that this was real, that this dangerous man was actually going to help her. I nodded. "He keeps his promises. And I'll make sure you have everything you need. Apartment, job references, childcare support. You made a mistake, but you're trying to protect your baby. I understand that. Why are you being so nice to me? I came here to ruin your marriage. Because you're not the villain here. You're just another woman these men thought they could use." I glanced at Alessandro. "And we don't punish the pawns. We eliminate the players." Alessandro's smile was razor sharp. "Exactly." We got Melissa set up in a safe house with round-the-clock protection. Elena personally handled her travel arrangements, booking a flight to Portland under a new name with enough cash to get her started. By the time the Castellanos realized their plan had failed, Melissa Carver would be gone. But we weren't done. That evening, Alessandro made phone calls. Quiet, careful conversations that ended with acknowledgments and promises. His network was vast, and he was calling in favors. "What are you planning?" I asked, curled up on the couch in his office. "The Castellanos think they can use innocent women to attack me. They think I'll be so busy managing the fallout that I won't retaliate." He looked up from his desk, eyes cold. "They're wrong. Alessandro, I'm not going to kill anyone if that's what worries you. But I am going to make sure they understand the consequences of threatening my wife, of using vulnerable women as weapons." He stood, crossed to me, pulled me up into his arms. "You are the line, Sarah. The one thing in this world I won't compromise on. And everyone needs to know that." The next morning, news broke that 3 Castellano businesses had failed health inspections. Simultaneously, by noon, the IRS had announced audits of 5 more. By evening, 2 of their key political contacts had withdrawn support publicly, citing ethical concerns. It was surgical, precise, devastating. And it sent a message that echoed through Chicago's underworld. The Marinos were untouchable. Alessandro's marriage was untouchable. His wife was untouchable. I watched it unfold from Alessandro's office, impressed despite myself. You did all this without violence. I told you, I'm not a monster. I just make sure the actual monsters face consequences. He pulled me into his lap. How are you? Really? I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. I leaned into him. 6 months ago, I would have been devastated by something like this. I would have doubted myself, doubted you, questioned everything. But now I know who we are, what we are. And what are we? Unbreakable. I kissed him softly. They tried to drive a wedge between us, and all they did was prove how solid we are. You weren't even a little bit worried? About you cheating? No. About you being stupid enough to get caught if you did? Definitely not. I smiled at his surprised laugh. You're many things, Alessandro Marino, but careless isn't one of them. If you wanted someone else, you'd tell me directly. You're too honest for affairs. I don't want anyone else. I've never wanted anyone the way I want you. His hands tightened on my waist. When I saw her in that lobby, my first thought wasn't about the threat to my reputation or my business. It was about whether you'd believe me, whether this would hurt you. That's how much power you have over me, Sarah. You're the only vulnerability I have left. Then it's a good thing I'm on your side. Always? Always, I promised. 2 weeks later, I got a package. Inside was a photo of a healthy baby girl and a note from Melissa. Thank you for giving me a chance to start over. You saved both of us. I showed it to Alessandro that evening. He studied the photo for a long moment, then set it carefully on his desk. You did a good thing, I said. We did a good thing. You're the one who saw her as a person instead of a threat. You're the one who convinced me to help. You would have helped anyway. Maybe. But you made me want to be better. You always do. He pulled me close, and I could feel his heartbeat against my cheek. Steady. Strong. Mine. The Castellanos never tried anything again. The message had been received loud and clear, and Melissa sent updates every few months, photos of her daughter, stories about her new job, gratitude for the life we'd given her. But more than that, the incident changed something fundamental in my marriage. It proved that we weren't just passionate lovers or convenient partners. We were a team, united, unshakable. When people whispered about Alessandro Marino now, they didn't just talk about his power or his ruthlessness. They talked about his wife, the woman who'd stood beside him when someone tried to tear them apart. The woman who'd shown mercy to a pawn while he'd dismantled the players. Together, we were more than either of us could be alone. And on nights when Alessandro held me close and whispered promises about forever, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice. I'd been drugged at a gala, saved by a dangerous man, and claimed in front of the world. I'd been tested by rivals who thought I was weak, thought our marriage was a liability. They'd all been wrong. Because I wasn't some fragile trophy wife. I was Sarah Marino, partner to Chicago's most powerful man. Protected and cherished, yes, but also strong enough to protect and cherish him in return. And when Alessandro kissed me that night, slow and deep and claiming, I kissed him back with the same intensity. Mine, his touch said. Yours, mine answered. Always yours, but you're mine too. And in the darkness of our bedroom, wrapped in each other's arms, we both knew the truth. Some love stories start with fairy tales and gentle courtship. Ours started with danger and defiance, and a man who saw me falling and refused to let me hit the ground. It was tested by rivals who thought they could break us. It was proven unbreakable, and it would last forever, because we'd both chosen it, claimed it, fought for it. I love you, Alessandro murmured against my skin. I love you, I whispered back. My husband, my partner, mine. Always, he promised. Forever. Forever. It sounded like a vow, like a threat, like a promise that nothing and no one could ever break. And I believed it with everything I was, because we were Alessandro and Sarah Marino, and we were unbreakable.